Hey, everybody. If you're watching this video, congratulations. You're taking the first steps to making $100,000 in 2021. If you're in real estate, obviously this applies to you. If you're not in real estate or thought about it, this really is a big step for you to achieve that goal. My name is Jay Acker. I'm with the Real Estate by Design group at Keller Williams here in Dallas, Fort Worth. And I'm always joined by my partner in crime.
This is Troy JASTER, and I'm with Real Estate by Design at Keller Williams in San Antonio, Texas. So Jay, one of the things that I have figured out that whenever we have new agents either join our team or people that want to get into real estate, and we have that first conversation of, what do you want to do? What are your goals in real estate? Almost every time we hear this, somebody says, I want to make six figures. Have you heard that before too?
Just about every time. Yeah.
Yeah, just about every time.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but there's this mythical thing that people have with making six figures. That's the big thing. And so whenever I hear that from a newer agent, or even from an experienced agent for that matter, whenever I hear that, my question is always, which six?
Yeah, it's very valid.
Right?
Is it the six that starts with a 1 or an 8?
That's right. Because would you agree? Those are very, very different, right?
Yeah, to the tune of 800% different. Yeah.
Right. And then the second part of that question too is, well, if you don't have precision with your goal, then you're not going to know what to shoot for. So Are we shooting for the six figures that begins with the 1, or are we shooting for the six big figures that begin with 8 or 9? Each of those are fine. We just have to have precision. So that's what we're talking about, right?
Yep, exactly right. So if you've ever been a part of our trainings, whether they be online or in person at conferences or offices or whatever it may be, you'll always probably recall Troy and or I saying, keep it simple. It doesn't have to be difficult. In fact, the path to success is simple, not easy, right? The simple part is seeing the path to get there. Knowing your path in this case is in the math, to steal another cliche. But it's really about the people who say, okay, here's the model. Am I willing to work through it? Which, by the way, you'll see does not take a whole lot of effort to get to that goal. So essentially, that failure to plan is your plan to fail ultimately at the end of the day. So one thing we have to ask ourselves before we start going through this, and what we're going to talk about today, is business planning from a financial model perspective. And Troy's got some really great tools. There's many out there. We're going to cover one that we use internally on our teams. But one of the things we want to realize is, okay, let's establish our goals first, but first we need to know where we are. We have to have a starting point. And really, let's just dive into it, because like I said, we keep things really simple. We get right into it. By the way, knowledge@rebdgroup.com is our email address that should be somewhere here, and will be certainly at the end, knowledge@rebdgroup.com. We're going to share all these models and templates with you guys. Anybody who wants it, all you have to do is reach out, and we'd love to hear your feedback on this session. And any great ideas or tips and tricks you might have, we'd love for you to share those as well. But Troy, let's talk more about the meat and potatoes here.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the thing that I've figured out is, you mentioned right off the bat, it's simple, it's not easy. It's that, making the plan, that's the easiest part. That's what we're going to talk about. Now, following the plan is the harder part. I know there's been several times as I've, trained over the years for a race, a triathlon, a half marathon, or whatever. There's been plenty of times I've put that training plan into my daily calendar, and plenty of times that I haven't done it.
Yeah.
Because I can make the plan. Don't you make sure I'll make sure of that.
Sure.
But then you actually have to do it.
Yeah,
so
it's easy to say, wake up and run 6 miles tomorrow. But when that alarm goes off at 5, good luck.
It's a lot harder to wake up and run 6 miles tomorrow. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here so that everybody can see. This is actually a tool that I actually developed. And pretty much, I'm not going to lie, I ripped it off for the most part from my previous job. We had something in our internal software system that we just called the scoreboard. Every time we logged into our software system, it was right there at the top. It showed where you are year to date. It showed where you are this year versus last year. And it's something just very simple. It was a snapshot. It wasn't super in depth, but it allowed me just every time I logged in to have a quick shot of where am I going, where have I come from. So that's what we're going to talk about first. We can't plan for 2021 until we know where we've been previously. So looking here at this spreadsheet that we've put together, the first thing I want you to know is obviously all of this information is just made up information. So don't look into the details of, this actual sales price and actual income and some of these are all made up numbers for the sake of the argument. So please at first understand that much. But what we're looking at here is up here at the top section. This first top section here is all of your closed units. So once that property actually closes and funds, it has now become an entry up here. So you see the date that it's closed, the source that it came from, because now if I start to do this over time, I can look at these lead sources and see where my best lead sources are. Or if I'm pouring money into something and I'm not getting a return out of it, then I can go, well, maybe I need to reassess on that one. I can look here at my buy and sell split, which we'll get into in a little bit. Of course, my clients, the addresses of their properties, and then the sale prices. And this last column here, or this column on column H here, is what is the actual paycheck that I brought home, not including taxes, that comes out later, but off of this sale price, what was the actual check that I brought home, not the gross, but the actual net that I made. And the reason that I have these two different columns here is because we see that, number one, it's not always a given that you're going to make a 3% or whatever is normal in your area. That's not always going to happen on every single deal. There's a lot of clients that I serve that come as agent referrals from different people around the state, around the country that know people, that have people moving here. So I would deal a lot in agent referrals. Well, it's a pretty standard thing for an agent referral that I would give a quarter of my commission back to that referring agent. So I've got to know that that's something that is, that's coming out of my bottom line. So
that's
I
a
can't
really
look
good
at
point.
that.
Yeah, I love that because I always hear, especially people that are thinking about getting into real estate or fresh off the exam. Oh yeah, 3%. And they just start figuring out their income based on number of sales and average volume, if you will. What other sorts of factors play into that? Because again, that's the gross number. That's the big sexy one. It's not necessarily the one that you take home.
Right. Well, and to your point, there's so many people that look at real estate and they go, well, a $200,000 house, that's 3%, that's $6,000.
Yeah.
I'm making $5,000 in my fill in the blank, whatever daytime job.
Right.
I can sell one house a month.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
And they
I think
start
that's
to
a
do
big,
the math.
yeah, that's
Right.
a big misconception people have for sure.
That is a huge misconception. Absolutely. So we have to know that there is this net number over here, and that's going to have a lot of different factors depending on your particular business setup. Now, it might mean that you have a brokerage that takes a commission split out. It might be that you're part of a team that takes a commission split out for the services that are provided. Again, like I said, it might be something where you're giving a percentage of your commission because of an agent referral or something similar. It might be something where it's a family member and you feel the need to discount a commission. Sure. It might be something like that. It might be a scenario where it's an investor that you do 5 or 6 or 10 properties a year and you've worked out a volume type of deal with them. So we're all business owners.
Yeah.
There's a reason that there's a dollar store and there's Neiman Marcus. They don't sell the same things.
That's true. So I'm glad you brought up the fact that we are business owners. We'll say that probably at least one more time during this session, because that's what really needs to hit home with everybody. If you're brand new, if you're part of a team, if you've been around for 20 years doing this, it doesn't matter. You are a business owner.
Absolutely. Yeah. And whether it's the dollar store, whether it's Neiman Marcus, neither of those is right or wrong. They serve the purpose for what they are selling and who their customer base is, who their client base is. So, then there's nothing extraordinary about this right here. It's just simply averages. But now we're going to take this sale price and we're going to look down here and we're going to look at things like closed totals, closed volume totals. So in this particular example, 1.685 million, closed averages. This becomes a big deal because what I found out very quickly, I've been in the real estate business since about 2016. And what I realized really quickly was that simply by changing my average sale price, increasing it, I increased my income. And so for an example, my first full year of real estate, my average sale price was about $235. Currently, my average sale price is about $287. So if I sold the exact same number of houses in first year versus this year, I would make more money take home this year because of that $52,000 income gain, or excuse me, the average sale gain. So just based on that, I'm making more money if I'm just selling the exact same number of houses.
Yeah. Yeah, those things are a humongous factor. And it's funny because we've been tracking these numbers for years, and we're going to get into conversions and stuff like that in a little bit, I think. But it starts to drive kind of your daily routine. And it also allows you to focus on the moving targets that are around you and figure out which ones are going to be most beneficial for you financially.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm looking at these, these total numbers down here, and I'm going, okay, so if my total closed volume, 1.685 and 28,500, if that's my total take home income so far for the year, then the second section comes into play. And this is everything that's currently under contract. For me, as soon as I have an executed contract in hand, that contract will go on to this section right here, because now that's a pending deal. That's potential income. We know that not every single pending deal always gets to the closing table, right, Jay?
Unfortunately, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it's our fault and sometimes it's not. But we know that there's things that happen. And so, so that's where I'm putting this down here as potential income. I'm certainly not spending it yet, which I know is a big problem for a lot of realtors.
Oh yeah.
But this is just all potential. This is what's coming. So I'm looking here going, okay, well, I have 1.28 million in potential upcoming, which is about 18,000 in actual upcoming income. And then again, here's the averages. And now I'm taking this potential and this already hard data, and I'm totaling it out here at the bottom where it says pending and closed, and going, okay, if everything stopped at, in this example, April 1st, and all of these are already closed, and these do close, and nothing else happened, then I'd have just shy of 3 million in volume and 46.5 in income. And then the last section down here at the bottom where it just simply says extra income. Well, we as realtors, it seems like there's ways that we can make extra income often from passive areas. So I mentioned about the agent referral thing. So I do a lot of inbound agent referrals. There's a lot of people moving to San Antonio. I also will send people out as well. So if I send one out, then maybe I'm getting a commission check or a portion of a commission check coming in. Well, that's something that is relatively passive. I usually just have to make a couple of phone calls and check in with people. And then all of a sudden, voila.
It's almost mailbox money, right?
It's almost, yeah. It's almost mailbox money. And then, here at Keller Williams, we have this awesome profit share system. And so, maybe you've got money coming in through the profit share system. So I just have this section down here at the bottom for all of the miscellaneous income that comes in. And then that, of course, will total into that complete pending and closed and bonus and everything. Because again, this is all money. It's commission. It's stuff that we have to pay taxes on, of course. So that's where I'm always looking at these numbers right here. What's the money that I already have in the bank for the year? What's my average check? What's the money that I should have by the end of the year with what is closed and what is pending? And then I can take these numbers and I can start to see things happen over time, because I've now been tracking this since literally my first ever closing in 2016. So I can go back and see every single client, see where they came from, if they were a buy or a sell, see the sale price, see the commission I took home on it, what my yearly totals were, what my yearly averages were. And then I can also actually start to build like a career ranking type of database of here's what I did in year 1, here's what I did in year 2. And I can look at it and say, in my 4 years, I've sold 177 properties for however many million, in volume it is. And
if you can't go to sleep at night, you read these numbers back to yourself the rest of the year.
Right.
Okay. So that's really impressive. You're a super numbers oriented guy. You're obviously a spreadsheet geek, but what about people like me? I got into the business in 2005. I didn't even keep a database until 2010. And I'm sure most agents, the ones that I speak to, most do not have this information at their disposal. They don't know what their average value might even be. They can ballpark it. But what about people like that who are trying to use this sort of model? I'm a new guy. Especially.
Well, I think what you have to understand is that you don't have to be as much of a spreadsheet lover as I am. You do have to understand that you're a business owner. a neighbor across the street from my house owns a Chick-fil-A restaurant. They've owned it for 20 years, one of the longest running ones in the San Antonio area. And back in the beginning of COVID, we were just standing out, at a safe distance across the street from each other. And I was asking him, I was like, so, the dining room was closed down. I said, how are your sales? How's it looking? And right there on the spot, he said, we're up 4% this week over last year, this same week. This same week they had it broken down to.
Yeah.
So, and he knew it that quick too. He knew right there on the spot. I mean, we're standing by the trash cans on the road, and he right there on the spot was able to say, and that's a business owner.
So I guess something that comes from that is probably extreme peace of mind. Because if I'm you or anybody else, or the Chick-fil-A guy who may not have his numbers nailed down like that, I could potentially feel a whole lot of anxiety because of what's going on around me, things that I can't control that may or may not affect my business. And when you look at that, again, the path is in the math, right? You've got real data to look at. You know exactly where you stand. So I think there's a whole lot of power in that.
And you're exactly right, because I'll tell you what happened for me was in August of this year, for whatever reason, it seems to happen for us as realtors, that you get on a high, you get on a low, and all of a sudden, just like in the snap of a finger, I was in a slump. And it literally probably lasted half of a day. But in that half of a day, in my mind, my world is falling apart. And it was right about the 1st of August. And I thought, okay, let me look back at all of these previous years and let me see, where was I in unit production and volume production, in income, in all these previous years on August 1st. And then where did I end? And it took, maybe, I don't know, a half hour to kind of peel back through everything and go, okay, here's where I was August 1st. Here's where I ended. Here's where I was August 1st. Here's where I ended. And then I looked at, here's where I am August 1st of 2020, and where am I projecting to end? And I looked at it and I went, well, that's not so bad.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah. The reality is never as vicious as the dream you've put in your head, right?
It was peace of mind. And it was, for that couple of hours, I let myself run down the rabbit hole of, oh my goodness, the sky is falling. It's all terrible. And then I just looked at the numbers, because the numbers don't have emotions.
And they don't lie.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
very, very powerful.
I looked at that and just went, okay, maybe it's not going to be my number one biggest year, but it's probably going to be number 2. Mm-hmm. And it'll be my best pandemic ever. best pandemic year ever. Yeah. So, it allows you then to, like you said, to have peace of mind. Or, the flip side might be, hey, the numbers are telling me I'm slacking off this year. Every other year at this date or this point, I was at X, and now I'm at 75% of X. Mm-hmm. So again, the numbers don't lie.
Yeah. Your urgency and focus tends to shift pretty quickly when you see that, doesn't it?
Right.
That's great.
Right. So, to answer the question, what does somebody that isn't as in love with numbers do? Well, I'm gonna press you for this. I used to be a teacher, not a math teacher, actually, surprisingly, but I did used to be a teacher. And we actually had an in-service one time. We had a math presenter come in, and he said, it's so acceptable in our lexicon, in our world, to just tell people, oh, I'm not a math person. Like, that's totally acceptable. But what if somebody were to say, oh, I'm not a reading person? You can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not allowed.
Nobody gets a pass for that one.
Yeah. You have to be a reading person. And so to a degree, each of us have to be a math person, because, if I'm checking out at the store and you're at the register and you're not a math person, mm-hmm. then if my bill is $20 and I give you a $10 bill, then I'm going to walk out because you're not a math person.
Right. I love that analogy. So, hey, just so I can talk some people that may be scared right now off the ledge, because some people see spreadsheets and they just,
they freak out.
I mean, they're hives. They can feel the hives coming.
Blood pressure goes.
Yeah. So this stuff, which we're going to share with anybody who wants it, is plug and play, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah,
already, all the
absolutely.
formulas are already built in. You just
Yep.
literally put your numbers in.
It's all there because, for me, the transactionally, here's what it looks like. Okay. Let's pretend this one right here on, March 13, this investor property for $180,000. Well, let's pretend that one closes. Okay. Well, it's just a cut and a paste. And now all I do is I take these numbers and I bump them over here. And now this is closed production and 2000, and that's gone and that's gone. Whoops. So I missed my cursor there. There we go. So it just becomes closed production then. And now it's my 7th closed unit.
Gotcha.
But everything's all, it all remains the same. And now my pending production numbers are smaller. My closed production numbers went up. So that's all it is. It just becomes a cut and a paste. Or, okay, got one under contract. Great. Okay, here's another one for 4-1 of, whatever. And now you enter in the rest of the information. So this is something where every single time, as soon as I have an executed contract, it goes into the list here. As soon as it goes from under contract to closed, it goes up here. And it just allows me, this is a document that I am literally looking at almost every single day. There's very few days when I'm not looking at it. As a quick little, just an add-on, this is definitely not the main part of it because I think we're staring at the main part of it. But I also have these other tabs down here where I'm putting in my logged mileage for the year and I'm putting in any business expenses for the year. And the reason I do that is because then when I'm doing my quarterly estimates for my accountant, I just simply send him this document. And so once a quarter, he sends me an email and he says, hey, time to do your quarterly estimate. Send me your spreadsheet. And I send it to him. And later that day, he goes, okay, write this really big check to the IRS. And I go, oh, yuck.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
A kick in the teeth. Yeah. But like you said, you're keeping up with it. You're keeping it current. It's a working document. It's a living document. It's not something you have to go back in when the CPA says, send me your spreadsheet. And you got to go back and start pulling numbers out of the air and putting them into this thing. So that's really an important piece of this.
And I think back to like, one of my grandfathers, like I can remember seeing the literal coffee can in the back seat of his car with a bunch of receipts stuffed in it. And that's just like, it's 2020, it's almost 2021. That's not the way we can do business. If you want to stay in this business, that's not the way you can do business.
Yeah. That's true. It's changing. Okay, cool. So the tracking spreadsheet, obviously extremely critical.
Yep.
What do we do in terms of the goal setting for the next year?
Yeah. And so of course, like we mentioned, this will be something that we can send out, just email knowledge@rbdgroup.com. And this is free, and there you go. It'll be yours too.
And by the way, let me just add, we've mentioned Keller Williams a couple of times. Full disclosure, we're Keller Williams. This is non-brand specific stuff. So if you're watching this and you're with anybody else, reach out. We're happy to share it. We're open book, and we're always trying to come from a place of contribution. So definitely let us know.
Yeah. I have the curse of being a teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher. I'm
Exactly.
just always going to help. Okay. So we're flipping over now we've looked at where we are and where we've been. This is where we're going. So Jay, tell us where this comes from, because this is not my invention.
This comes from, again, I mentioned the KW angle here. This is the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. If you're one of 190,000 KW associates, you've certainly heard of it. Most of you have probably read it. This model is straight out of the book.
Yeah.
And this book is almost 20 years old. I mean, it's been around for
I think it was early 2000s, maybe like 03, 04 when it came out.
Getting close to 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what they did was they took the numbers from a whole bunch, like hundreds and thousands of successful agents, and they put together all of these formulas to say, here's what the successful people are doing. And so the beautiful part of this economic model is that we just start here at the top with the goal. So if we say, again, where we started today, okay, how do we make $100,000 in 2021? Okay, well, that's going to be our net income up here at the top. And of course, like I mentioned, you're taking your taxes out of that. But this is the net that we're coming home with. Well, we mentioned back over here that the gross commission percentage and the net commission percentage were two different things. And so we know that a gross closed income or gross commission income is not going to be the same as our net income, because we're going to have things like cost of sales and operating expenses. Jay, kind of give us an idea of what some of those expenses are going to be.
Those are, especially on the listing side of things, your expenses tend to be a little heavier, like your photography, all the marketing that goes along with it, your office space. If you hire somebody to do your contract to close, admin, I mean, there's a ton of different things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then of course, adding into that, if you're in a brokerage, whether it's a flat fee brokerage, whether it's a commission split type of
Or
brokerage, there's going to be,
cap.
there's going to be cap percentages or cap dollar amounts that come out of that. Of course, marketing goes into this,
Mm-hmm.
buying your signs, buying your lock boxes, getting your license and keeping your license and being part of your board and part of your MLS. And there's a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it goes against that theory of, oh, I can just sell one house at $200,000 and that's $6,000. And then I can do one a month and I have $72,000. Well, not so fast.
Sort of. Not really though.
Yeah. You'll start with that, but that's not where you're going to end. So anyway, like we said, there's going to be cost of sales. There's going to be operating expenses. So we're going to come down here then to this line. What I've found is that normally speaking, if you are a beginner agent, if it's first year or you haven't even gotten started, maybe even second year, a lot of times you start with more buyers closing as clients than sellers. It just tends to be that way. Again, I've tracked these things. And I've seen my business go from, the first year, it was about 60% buyers, about 40% sellers. And then last year it went to almost the exact opposite of about 2-to-1 listings over buyers closed. So we can move these percentages to know that if, maybe you're getting started and you only have 40% of your closings are sellers, then that obviously means that 60% will be buyers. So we can manipulate these things back and forth. So once we do that, and just for the sake of the argument, we're going to leave it at a 50-50 rate for right now. So once we do that, we just kind of look down the list and we'll see the green boxes you'll see highlighted. And the reason these green boxes are highlighted is because these are the things that we can influence as agents. The yellow boxes are our totals. So you'll see how as we change things, our totals will change as well. So the first thing, we talked about the commission rates earlier. And it's not, as we've spoken about, just about always getting a 3% commission rate. Well, I know there's some agents and teams that as a listing, they actually are charging 7% or 8%. I know some that are charging 4 or 5. And hey, again, we have the dollar store, we have Neiman Marcus. There's a reason for both. So if we look back just to our sample over here and say, okay, 2.7 is about what the average commission rate is. So let's just throw that in and see how things change. So this shows right now a total of 33 closed listings. But if I actually change that to 2.7 on both of these, that number goes up a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Quite a bit, actually. That's 4 units, 4 more sold units.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, then the next green box, again, things that we can affect is our average sale price. Well, we just threw in here 250 as an average sale price because that's just kind of a nice round number. But as I mentioned to you, like my average sale price last year was about 289. So if I bump that over, let's watch that number change again. And we went from 37 down to 32. So I can sell 5 less houses and make the same amount of money. So that's a pretty cool idea. But now if we actually skip down here to the bottom and think of it as an inverted funnel, we start with lead generation, and what lead generation will cause, or the end result of lead generation is appointments, whether that's a listing appointment or whether that's a buyer's appointment. So what this says is if I want to make $100,000 looking at these commission rates and this average sale price, it means I have to close 32 units, but I can't just like all of a sudden snap my finger and have a listing immediately become closed. It doesn't work that way. A lead becomes an appointment becomes a client becomes a closing becomes money in the bank. So I have to back my way through that and say, okay, if I'm lead generating and I get an appointment, and I say, okay, my goal every week is that I have to have a half of a listing appointment, if that's possible, and a half of a buyer's appointment each week. So basically 1 appointment a week.
By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but this means everything to me. And I'm not just talking as like a business owner. I'm talking about anything that's tied to my income is driven by my activities. And this is a perfect illustration of that. So it's kind of like you said, you're backing out from your income and your closed production to almost to what when you get real micro with it, what your daily accountability and your numbers need to be in terms of prospecting and lead generation. So I love it. I mean, we've been using a similar model like that for several years now, and it's uncanny how the results follow these activities. I mean, it's almost spot on every time.
And so here's what I love about it is that if I'm setting those appointments, if I'm working the phones, if I'm door knocking, I'm doing my open houses, whatever, hitting my sphere, if I'm doing all those things and I'm booking the appointments. So let's say this looks like to me about 5 appointments a month. So let's say I'm going on my 5 appointments a month, and that tells me then that I should have a total of 43 clients signed. Okay. So if I have, if I'm going on my 5 appointments a month and I am only closing, let's say 5 appointments a month and I'm getting 2 clients out of it. So 2 divided by 5, that's 40%. So I have a 40% appointment to client conversion ratio. Okay, so let's look at what happens there. If I say only 40% of these appointments that I'm going on, I'm closing, then I have a way larger number of appointments that I have to hit. Yep. Because my conversion just isn't there. So the beautiful part about this is that if I'm going on my 28 and a half listing appointments in a given year, and I look up at the end of the year and I say, oh, I only made 15 of those become listings, then if this number is low, it's really easy for me to pinpoint what the problem is, because I go somewhere, I'm lead generating enough. So that's the good point. I'm lead generating enough to get the appointments, but I'm doing something between appointment and client. Something's missing there. So are those appointments that I'm going on, maybe, are they people that aren't really serious about selling their house?
Or be self-reflective. Am I behind the times in terms of a listing presentation? Do I need to sharpen my skills? A lot of this comes back to scripting and stuff like that. That's a whole different subject.
Exactly. I mean, you nailed it. It's skill set. So much of this is skill set. And so is it something where my competitor always beats me out because of blank, whatever that is? And so then I'm going, okay, well, if I'm always getting beat out by that, then I need to adjust. I need to figure out what my niche is so that I can get in front of them. And then if we move up and we say, okay, you're getting the 21 listings, but only 10 of them are selling.
Right.
Okay. So then again, I'll go back to that first question of are these sellers actually really willing to sell?
Yeah.
We'll look at, is it priced right? Is it marketed right?
It does. It fine tunes everything you do. And, it really does. And it's not like a conscious thing that you have to focus on. You're almost forced to do it because, again, you see this unfolding right in front of you in terms of these numbers, and you can't ignore it because it's the absolute truth. Yeah, I mean, I'm a blunt guy. Just give it to me hard, Doc, right?
Again, the numbers don't lie.
No, they don't.
Right? I mean,
it's awesome.
But here's the point is you've got to be tracking these things. And so if you can look back in your calendar, and again, because this is where just like we talked about here, if you've never done this before and you've been in the business for 4 or 5 years, whatever, the first thing that I would absolutely urge you to do is just to stop everything. And I know that one of the things we do as real estate agents is a lot of times we kind of have this badge of honor of, oh, I'm just so crazy busy. Everything's been so busy. Okay, well, let's actually stop everything we're doing for probably, we're talking a few hours, maybe half of a day, where you just stop everything and you go back through all your old files and you build something like this to look at, okay, I've been in business for 4 years and I've never checked this. So how did 2017 look? How did 2018 look? How did 2019 look? And then now how did 2020 look and where am I going for 21? So I can do the same exact thing here and say, if you're someone who's really diligent about your calendar and you keep all of your appointments in your calendar, well, you can go back to your calendar, whether it's a paper calendar, whether it's a digital thing, doesn't matter. You go back to your calendar and you say, okay, here's all my listing appointments. I went on 15 listing appointments. And then you look at, did they turn into clients? And you're like, hey, 14 out of 15 turned into clients. Well, that's pretty awesome. All right, now my appointment to client ratio is really high, so I can make that adjustment. But the best part about all of this is that no matter what your end goal is here, it breaks it down to the smallest details. And here's something funny, Jay. Every time that I've gone through this with a new agent, whether it's been somebody on our team, whether I've been teaching a training class or anything like that, when that new agent spits out for the first time, they say, I want to make 6 figures, or I want to make $100,000, or even if it's not that, even if it's, I want to make 60, or I want to make 400,000, or whatever it is, every single time when we get to the bottom and I say, okay, in order for you to do that with all of these assumptions, you got to go on 1 appointment a week.
Jaw drops, doesn't it?
Every single time the response from that agent, oh, I can do that.
Yeah. They're like, really? So
every time.
That's another thing. I mean, I love simplicity. It just oozes from my pores. And when I see this, you know, when you're looking at the end goal, many people are going to cave in because they're just sick of looking at that big mountain they have to climb. If you're looking at the baby step that it takes to get there, and when you break it down like this, it just illustrates it perfectly. And I would even contend you could go further back into detail if you wanted to and say, okay, regardless of what my lead lever is, say I do tons of prospecting for internet leads for buyers,
sure,
which we do a ton of. You know, I know that every 28 connections I make, live connection, doesn't have to be a conversation. They can hang up on me, but every 28 results in an appointment. Are you kidding me? So I got to make 28 live connections. I can knock that out in a day if I wanted to, pretty simply. But I also start kind of back ending into playing games with myself. Okay, let's see. I've improved my conversion from 28 conversations to 25, you know, that it takes to get an appointment. You're becoming more efficient with what you're doing, and you're almost forcing yourself unconsciously to do that.
And the thing that I love about that is when you know your numbers that clearly, like you said, 28, if 28 conversations is the number for you, the way that I look at that is I grab that phone and I go, it's a race. How fast can I get 28?
Yep.
And it was like, you know what, if somebody hangs up on me, I'm going, cool, one more.
Number one. Next. Exactly right.
Yeah. Next. I mean, I look at it from that competitive standpoint and go, if I know my numbers well enough, then it's a race.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, how fast can I get that done? Or, you know, again, when you know your numbers, then it, like you said earlier, it provides the peace of mind where you could say, you know what, next week, family's coming in town and I want to take some time off. Okay. So if I double my efforts this week, then I don't feel bad about next week. And so I'm not sitting there with my family trying to enjoy family time and going, oh man, I should really be lead generating. I haven't even you're not doing that. You're there able to actually enjoy your time off.
Because that ultimately is why a lot of us got into the business. Flexibility, the ability to enjoy your time off with the people you care about.
Be your own boss, make your own schedule. That's why so many people do it.
Mm-hmm.
But then they realize that making your own schedule and being your own boss means you have to make your own schedule and be your own boss.
Not just get a real sweet business card and lease a nice Audi or something like that, right? You actually have to do stuff. The path to success is simple, not easy.
I think I've heard that before.
A couple times.
Yeah. And so like we said with the last one, you don't have to be in love with spreadsheets and math as much as I am. I get that. That's fine. But you at least have to have an understanding at the basic levels of where you are, where you've been, where you're going. You have to at least have that, because what we know is, as I sit here in my office in San Antonio, if I turned this camera around and stared right out that window, there's a Cadillac dealership right across the street. And this building that I'm in is 12 stories. And I've got to know that when business is great, I can't go running across the street every week and try to find the next newest, latest, greatest Cadillac. And at the same time, when business is poor, I can't take the elevator to the top and want to jump. I've got to make sure that even if it's doing this, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And these are the types of tools that will do that. Like I said, back in August, when I had my little freak out moment, I went back to the numbers and went, okay, we're good. Get back on the phones. Get back into lead generation. Get back to work.
Do the things. Perform the activities that brought you the success.
Yeah.
Keep backfilling the pipeline.
Because we know that while we're here in the fourth quarter of 2020, the things that we're doing today are already going to be what's showing up in January and February and March in quarter one. I already have properties on the books that will be closing in 2021. because I know that that's how far ahead we're already planning. I look at things of, as we sit here today, it's late October. I don't care about October. October is long gone by now. I don't even really care about November. There's very little that I can do to change what's going to happen in November.
Yep.
I'm already looking at what's December, what's January, what's February look like. That's what I'm looking at right now.
And I'm going to repeat what you said. This is a reactionary business. What you do right now will show up in 90 days, and what you do not do right now will also show its ugly face in 90 days. Which face do you want to see? Right?
Right.
So we are preaching on our team and have forever fourth quarters when we put our foot on the gas, because if you've got your goals set for the next year, in this case 2021, and you're not doing the things that are required to bring that success, you're going to become pretty down on yourself come February, March, when the first quarter is already shot and you've already written off the rest of your year. Right. So hit it hard. Right. This tool is a freaking awesome way to do it. And I'll even add, because we're a big prospecting team, Troy and I, when the holidays roll around, a lot of agents kind of sit back. You know what I mean? They
for about a month.
Yeah, for at least a month. And they wake up and maybe get off the couch around 11 a.m. This is when we really crank it up. This is when we fire it up, because the success of our next year depends on what we do in that first quarter. So I would urge those of you listening, do the same. And I seem to get far more traction with folks when I talk to them in the fourth quarter, maybe because they're hearing from less agents.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. Because if you take off from Thanksgiving to New Year's, then you're sitting there in February going, why am I not closing any business right now? Mm-hmm. Why am I so dry? Well, you took a month off. And then if you suddenly at that point, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to do a bunch of lead generation. I need to go on a bunch of appointments. I need to get a bunch of clients. Guess what? You're doing that in February, and it's going to show up in May.
That's right.
So now if you suddenly decide at that point, you've already lost 4 to 5 months of the year.
Yep.
It's reaction versus being proactive.
Yeah, this is an awesome tool. And I love this version of it because it's the simplest one I've seen. And I know there's billions of them out there. I think they're all fantastic if they hold you accountable and they show you what you need to do in terms of the actions to get the result. So,
and the cool thing about real estate, if I woke up tomorrow and said, I want to give myself a raise and I want to make 150,000, then it just bam, bam, bam. Now I know 48 units.
Yeah.
And here's my listing appointment. Here's my buyer appointment. I can give myself a raise.
Yeah. And you can fiddle with those numbers anytime you want to. So if you're way ahead of schedule, Troy, I know you and I have done this before, and I know we're wrapping up, but I know that you've been way ahead of goal before in June and July.
Yeah.
We bumped it up, right? Yeah. Because to hit the goal you had set at the beginning of the year, you were going to be there in August. You know, what do you do for the last 4 or 5 months?
Because then that brings up that question of like, okay, yeah, what happens when you achieve the goal too fast? And okay, well, here's 2 options. You can either increase the goal and keep on pressing, or you sit back and go to Tahiti for 5 months, which there's validity in both of those. Let's be honest.
And on the flip side, life events happen that keep you from achieving that goal. And it's not a shameful place to be to adjust your goal down, to be realistic, because life happens, right?
Yep.
So that's a moving target. You have to acknowledge that all the time. And if you're doing well, bump it up. If you're not doing so well for whatever reason, pull it down so it's a little more realistic for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and there was, at the end of last year, there was a good friend of mine who's an agent. We were texting back and forth about some stuff, just planning for the next year. And she made the statement of, I want to triple my business next year. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, you're not just going to make a statement like that around this guy and not have me push back on you.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, well, what was your production last year? Okay, it was X. All right, do you realize that tripling means you have to do this 3 times, whatever that was? Okay, now let's start diving into that. And all of a sudden she goes, whoa, I didn't realize that. And I said, okay, then you have 2 choices. One is you need to triple all of your activities, triple everything you're doing, and achieve this wild goal, which I think you can do. Or you have to go, okay, maybe I was out over my skis on that one, and I'm going to bring it back to whatever the new goal is. Mm-hmm. But the beauty of it is you can do that. And if 2020 has taught us anything, it's that life happens and be flexible.
Well, that's for sure. Got to be able to pivot and move with the tide. That's for darn sure.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. Well, man, thank you so much for diving into that, especially your tracker, your own baby. That's really helpful stuff. Again, for anybody who wants this information, as we always do during our training sessions, we give it to you for nothing. Just
Yep.
email us at knowledge@rebdgroup.com. Our contact information will be posted here at the end of this. You feel free to reach out to either one of us. We're happy to help you out with your business in any way that we can. And again, if you have comments, questions, concerns, let us know. We're happy to address it. But till next time, Troy, thanks, man. That was really good stuff.
Absolutely. This was awesome. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love just diving in and being analytical on these kind of things. And as we said earlier, absolutely willing to share it and discuss it and answer questions. Absolutely. So our contact information is coming up, and thanks so much for watching.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, you guys. Till next time. Take care.